I've been thinking about this whole idea of harmony and alignment with things, making choices that bring us in harmony with what's going on, versus instead trying to fight what's going on and trying to kind of deny reality. And, one way to deny reality is simply by escapism, simply by not thinking about it. Maybe that's the simplest way if you're able to, if you're not forced to confront head on any of the ugly aspects of reality that you'd rather not deal with, then you can simply pretend that reality doesn't exist and carry on in your imagination. And I've certainly spent enough time doing that. And on the other hand, you can try to rebel against reality and simply fight against it, resist it with the power of your individual spirit. Which, I think when you put it like that, it sounds kind of noble and great. But really, rebelling directly against reality is not going to help anything. Of course, we can rebel against certain aspects of reality. We don't have to accept everything about the way things are and just like, oh, well, I'm just going to go with the flow, just whatever things are, I'll just carry on. Of course, we can fight for change and change the way things are. But we can't directly fight against reality and say, I'm just not a fan of gravity. Gravity is really bringing me down, just really holding me down. And I've just had enough of gravity and I'm going to rebel. Now that would be very, it could be a noble and great storyline maybe of a rebellion against gravity, and maybe, the whole history of flight, and maybe you can go up in a balloon or go to space or something. So there's always ways around it. But So it doesn't mean that we have to simply accept everything. And I think it's important to not let this idea of being in harmony and alignment, being in flow, that doesn't mean that we just accept how things currently are with no change. But there's something about the way things are, the way the universe works, beyond any kind of particular situation that we happen to be in the moment, that's always possible to change. But certain things about this, just an idea about the way things work, the way life is, the way the universe is at a very basic level. And if you want to sound all religious about it, you can call it God's will. If you're thinking of like the Tao, you can think of it as like, flowing with the Tao. In the Sikh tradition, it'd be the hukam. And, if you just want nothing to do with any of that religious stuff, it can be purely atheist. It can be maybe being in flow, in a flow state, or just through a rational, reasonable understanding of the evidence presented by the universe, making decisions that are in alignment with the evidence as presented. And that could be a more rational way to describe it. But I think it's really kind of the same thing. It's really all part of the same idea of being in harmony with the universe, being aligned with what's going on, so that we make our decisions in a way that flows with the way things are, instead of trying to rebel against and say, I want what I want, even if that's not the way things are. And it is kind of a tricky concept because, it's hard to think of it without thinking of this, it's kind of like giving up. It's like, well, I'll give up about what I want and I'll simply do whatever I think the universe wants. And so, it kind of feels heroic to kind of rebel against that and say, no, I can change the world. But as much as that works from every practical, material, specific thing, that's always open to change as the world changes. but there's a certain kind of fundamental flow to the universe, the way that life is, the way the universe is at a fundamental level, beyond all systems that can be changed, overthrown, rebelled against, revolution, new systems, all the world of change. There's a fundamental kind of way that the universe is, and the way that things kind of flow, the nature of time, of life, of the material world, of the way things unfold. That's so hard to describe really in any clear way, but it can be kind of sensed, I think, in one way or another. And so many of the religious, spiritual, mystical traditions, as well as traditions of science and reason, are just simply trying to understand something about this basic flow of the universe. So whatever it is, it seems like when we can be aligned with it and flow with it, then we really kind of fit beautifully into the universe, and it leads to good things. So as to exactly how to figure out what is this nature of the universe, well, that is a big question, and I would love to hear any suggestions. Where do you go to this, to find this? How do you get a clue about what the universe is calling for?